All right, it's 4:15, 4:16. We've got a couple members coming, but we'll get started. I want to thank all of you who came to observe today, and I do want to highlight that your presence is welcome, but it will be just as observers. There won't be any opportunity for audience participation. But thank you for being here. I would suggest we start either with the inclement weather policy or PTO. Anybody have any preference? Let's go with the inclement weather. I sent around to you, I know I gave you very little notice, but I gave myself very little notice on the revision to that. The things in red that I put there were, as I read the policy carefully, thought those little clauses made it, explain it better.
Yes.
So I put those in there. What do you guys think of the format in terms of the scenario A, scenario B? Is that going to be more understandable?
Yes. Yeah.
That is more helpful.
And I think if communication is clear on those days,
Yeah.
make sure everybody understands who reports and who doesn't.
And I think that'll be the building principal's responsibility for making, once it's put out in policy and put forth, then I think surely the building administrators will cover that at the beginning of the year, and we won't have.
For continuity, I know this is a little thing, but it says suspension of classes due to cold weather. It might be nice if we use the same idea, suspension of district operations. It might make it easier instead of called total shutdown. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It would be.
Sure.
Consistent.
Yeah, consistent. There you go. So you
That
have,
makes sense.
yeah, you make, suspension of classes, suspension of district operations.
Last night we gave the support staff the job of going back and talking about the other option of removing the snow days, the built-in snow days, building their contract based on days work without the snow days and any snow days work, adding on to the end of the year. So they have extra pay at the end of the year.
Right. What sort of feedback did you get?
We haven't got any yet because it was last night, but we're working on it. So based on what was said at the table, I believe that was a desirable scenario too for the inclement weather process, instead of having to use a PTO day.
But just having non-certified, not having snow days built in, or you mean the entire
So
calendar?
they would build their contract, say 164 is the academic year we have to work. So their contract would be built on 164 and divided by 12.
Plus the additional days that are, if we add any days at the beginning, a day
Right.
at the end. Or,
And then we would take out the built-in snow days, and then those would be paid out at the end of the year for the ones we did not use, or in the spring. I'm not sure when Wes would want to do that, but so if we only had 3 snow days, they would be paid for those other 3 at the end of the year. That way they wouldn't have to use PTO days for snow days, and they could not come in. Those of them that are not like essential, because I know they're essential.
Okay, I guess I'm
No.
still not getting it. Okay, so are you getting it? Because that's more important than me getting it. But I'm talking.
This was
Yeah, we
discussed
discussed it last
I
time.
know, and I apologize, but I just want to
No,
make
it's
sure.
okay.
So we take the snow days out for them.
For them.
Right.
But why are we paying them at the end of the year?
If we end
Because
up
their
working,
contract
work
is
them.
less.
The days would be
Their
like that.
agreement is
Right.
for
Oh, if
fewer
we make
days.
them up.
If
No.
Because isn't there a current contract
If
for
we work them.
174?
If we work.
So we still have 6 built into our
Oh, so you
school
mean if we
year.
don't use the snow days,
Then we
then?
pay them at
Right.
the end.
Sorry, thank
That
you
way
for
they don't have to
clarifying.
use their own personal days to not come in.
it's an add instead of a deduct.
Yeah.
Got it. I wasn't getting that if we
Yeah,
worked it.
and then we're sending out, I know we've been working on communication and a survey, and
We're gonna fix that up
where's
too.
she at? One of them here, I don't know if she's got any feedback.
Who are you looking for?
Julie?
She's over there, white sweater.
Oh, I'm looking right at you. Did you get any, can I ask her a question?
Sure.
Did you get any feedback on that today? I know it's short turnaround.
It's very confusing. It's almost like trying to explain everything over again. To me, I guess I don't have a problem with the way it is now. If we can make everybody understand, I think it's the fear of the unknown. Because it's very hard to explain. I think, Tammy, you kind of, it's hard to comprehend if you're not thinking along the right lines. But actually, and I'm right in thinking, and it's the same thing, they're not going to lose any money. They're not going to lose. Actually, I think it would probably be better.
And they wouldn't have to use PTO days that way either.
And I've only had, since last
Last
night, I
night.
really haven't had much time. But I think I've written a date down to get back with you by a certain time. So
Next
if you
week.
give me a little more time.
Yeah, and we were working on some communications with that, so we'll share that with
Sure
you
where
too.
this is.
So
Yeah.
maybe that'll help in a survey, so.
The one thing that we'd probably want to add in is if we have a total district shutdown, that they would go ahead and be paid that day. See, and that would be the issue with this. If we wrote the short contract and then we end up having that day, they're going to lose a day there. And so there would be a disadvantage to it if we have a total district shutdown and we wrote it as a shorter work agreement. That would short them a day they possibly could earn. We'd have to iron that
It says
part
that in
out.
here, under suspension, if we change it to suspension, it says, if the superintendent ceases all operations, all employees who were scheduled to work that day will receive pay for the
Yeah,
day.
that
So
was-
we're okay with that?
was a-
So that
what-
would
a new
not-
thing that I added in.
Yeah, so that would not be changed if their contract was.
But that's a
No,
good
it
thought
shouldn't.
considering 3 of the 4 you've had this year have been
Right.
all district
Yes.
shutdowns. You've
Right.
got to think about
Yeah,
that.
and that's why I put in there who were scheduled to work that day, because then
Excellent,
everybody that was scheduled would get the
excellent, okay.
would get the pay. So if I'm hearing correctly, we basically are now talking about 2 options. An option which is yet to be formulated when you get feedback from staff people. So let's focus on this one as the other option. Do you see changes that you feel like would need to be made for consideration of this as one of the options?
I have some minor changes that I would like to recommend for both scenario A and for scenario B. Under the number 3 of scenario A, where it says all 12-month elementary, middle, high school, and vocational personnel do report, okay? I want to clarify what is vocational personnel.
Vocational personnel would be the Hilliard staff, I'm assuming.
The Hilliard staff, okay. So what I would like to make an amendment to this would be to say those salaried employees whose main job is direct instruction of students do not report. So there are a handful of Hilliard's teachers who are teachers, that is their primary job. They are instructors of students. And if those students do not attend, just like any other classroom, why should they be there?
Are they 12-month employees? So they're receiving other benefits
they
like
are-
vacation and that?
Vacation, but they're in that gray area
Right.
because they
If they're
receive,
getting vacation, it's not gray, they're 260.
Yeah.
well, they're not 260, they're 239.
Because they
They're
don't
not
receive the
260.
18 holidays.
So they don't receive the holiday pay
Right.
for all those 18
They
days that
receive
260 is due.
Vacation.
But they receive the week of vacation or whatever it is, 10 days or whatever it is, I can't remember exactly. But that's what they do receive. So they are instructors, but it's because they are a special class for like the radiology, things like that, have a longer class requirement, hour requirement for students, because they have both, or they have mostly adult ed.
Well, I'll need to check into that, because if they're getting vacation, the only people who are supposed to get vacation are 12-month employees. So if they're getting vacation, either they're a 12-month employee or they shouldn't be getting the vacation.
Okay, that opens us up to another question then. If they're a 12-month employee, why don't they get paid 18 holidays? So that does bring up some more discussion.
Well, and I think that we've already kind of decided that we were gonna really take a really strong look at everything that goes on
Yeah.
at Hilliard's,
Yes.
because they're so complicated.
That's true.
That,
They should have about 20 calendars for themselves.
They really should,
Right.
that's true.
and I know, so we're
But
gonna
the-
do that for next year.
Right.
Well, not for next year, for the next
Well, when-
following year, so the
Correct.
18-19.
Yes.
So for next year, what we would like to do is make sure that the confusion is taken away for them so that they know if my job is direct instruction of
Instruct
students,
students.
then I do not report.
So
Because
does it
this year, there
matter-
has been some major confusion within that department for sure.
So can I ask, because I don't know, do they have separate classes for the high school kids and adult
Adults.
ed, or are there some of the classes that are taught together?
Some are
To my
combined.
understanding, some are together.
Some are combined, some are separate. The dental hygiene is separate. But some of the classes like firefighters combined, it's all different. And that's where it would really pay the board to sit down with that program, because it's going to expand and you're going to want to
Oh,
have
yeah.
different.
Oh, yeah.
That's in
already
the
a
planning.
commitment.
We're just asking for till we get to that point, when they call us and say, hey, our primary job is teaching. We don't get paid holidays. We do get vacation. But
Paid vacation or just vacation?
I don't know, paid
That's what we
vacation,
need to
right?
do. Vacation.
But no holidays, and so with their primary duty being teaching of students, we'd like them to fall under the category of classifieds, teachers, where they didn't have to come to work during that time. That's all we're asking until this can be further worked out. With the rationale, originally this was done to get their salaries up to a competitive level anyway, basically. So we could pay them more money, and before things turned over, those people would come in and they wouldn't even have to come to work. They would just written a longer contract even though they didn't come in. And until the board gets around to actually, cleaning that situation up.
Do you need to do more investigating on
Yeah.
trying
I
to?
think we do,
Okay,
because
that's
they
fine.
receive paid vacation. I don't know that they would qualify under what you guys qualify under as certified teachers who teach every day, but you don't have that same benefit, so.
And I'm sure they'd be thrilled to get paid 18 more holidays
Yeah.
too. I mean, they would love that cut. I'm
They
sure they
might
would
not be
come
too
in.
happy if you brought this up though, and we cut their paid vacation because they shouldn't be getting it, but
Right.
we'll see
Well,
what comes of
yeah,
it.
we'll
What's
see what
fair
comes
is
of it.
fair, what comes of it.
That's all we're asking for. Fair.
Okay, what else, Eric?
And then under B, scenario B, this is a very minor change, but it says at the very bottom of that first paragraph, employees who are required to report and do not will be required to use appropriate paid, will be required to use appropriate paid
That should say
leave.
will be allowed.
Allowed, okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that's a typo.
So that's why at the end of that, if we said something like that, I was gonna say they could take a leave day or they could take a day without pay.
No, that was just
Okay.
bad typing.
That's
Okay,
right.
so allowed.
Yep, that should be allowed.
Okay.
Okay, anything else on that?
That is all.
Okay, so when we meet next, then we will have, if you guys have a chance to put together, as worded as closely as you can to what you think you want, a proposal from using the 164, and then we'll look at the
Okay.
two and
Okay.
go
Okay.
from there. Okay, anything else on that before we move on? Okay, on GDBB. If I remember correctly from our discussion last night, we really hadn't suggested changes to this, or am I forgetting something?
Which one are you looking at?
This is comp time, right?
GD,
comp time?
yeah, comp time. Non-exempt employee supplementary pay plan.
Are we presenting the old option to that group as an option, or is this kind of hard and fast for you and me?
What options are you talking about?
Well,
I thought
like
that's
the comp time for overtime pay will be paid out each month instead of comp time.
Yeah, what we had been talking about
Yeah.
as a change, I thought was where we were as a
Okay.
group.
And was that talked about last night at United? Okay, then yeah, that's where we are.
Extensively.
Okay.
So are we good to go on that one, or is there more discussion that needs to be had?
Just clarification, as we talked about last night. I remember Amy talked about 37 up hours, just so we're clear on, you have to hit the 40-hour mark to achieve overtime. I think that's going to clear up some phone calls, angry phone calls.
Can I
Do you
phone
think
call on a friend from the board for the support? Is that okay? See if she has any more information.
I guess
From
if she
last
has,
night.
more information.
Do you have more information from
No,
last
I
night?
have a question. So if we were to use 6 snow days though throughout the year, then at the end, they would actually lose 6 days worth of pay. Even though they're paid for the snow days, we'll lose days because we don't have the option to use a new day.
So
That's a good point.
Yeah, you're smart if you leave it alone,
I think-
because a lot of thought and time went into that, and I can't
Are we
take any
talking
credit
about
for
what
that, but I can sure give the credit to Dr. Kraus and Wes that, wow, he worked that anyway and out. Our big main thing was not to have anybody lose pay,
That's what I think.
yeah, and coming at it now, it will take a lot more working out, and you're right. That's why my question, that's why I questioned that earlier.
Because if
West,
you
it
do
went
use
out as
snow days
4:30.
during the year, then you're not going to be having any days off
That's right.
Not
To the end, and they
intentional.
won't be able to make that money.
Right.
Exactly. That's why I questioned that at the very beginning, and I apologize for those of you in the audience. I did not make the SJSD meeting last night, had a family emergency, so that's why I questioned that at the beginning, because I didn't know the discussion.
And then my thought,
But we're
That's
discussing
not-
compensatory.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
that doesn't have to do with this.
Right. Yep.
Just clarifications.
So are we still
I do,
talking?
I agree with Todd, I think that it needs to be in writing in here, and I know it says more than 40 hours during any 1 week, but I think it would help to clarify even further. Up to 40 hours would be paid at your normal rate. For our paras that are 37.5 hours.
Or 35,
Those-
35.
Yeah, those 2.5 hours or 5 hours, whatever it might be, are going to pay to, I just think if that's in writing, very clear, it will help everyone involved.
Where are you in that? Where are you on what?
Underneath overtime compensation, it says the following provisions apply to non-exempt staff who work more than 40 hours during any work week.
Clear.
You probably need to add a sentence after that to say any hours up to 40 would be paid at your normal,
pay rate.
yeah, pay rate or however you need to word that.
Comp time is defined as anything over 40 hours.
Right.
So
I-
the 2.5
we
hours they're
un-
getting paid for is not comp time.
So then that
Right.
just needs to be put
Understand.
in as
Right.
a communication so they
Yes.
understand. My contract is 37, so after 37, I'm not getting paid overtime.
That's correct.
See, and I think
Right.
that's a
37,
misunderstanding.
comp time is, that's why the
As
policy's
after
written
40,
over 40
yeah.
hours.
Yes.
So we're talking about communication.
We're
that
saying
needs
just
to
a
happen.
further sentence, just to make it even clearer for everyone involved.
Because last night at a United
Yes.
meeting, we had a question, somebody who worked 37 hours, they thought if once they hit over 37 hours that they got the time and a half.
Overtime.
Oh, no.
But they
Yeah.
don't get that until the
Yeah.
40.
That's
So
correct.
just
that's
adding
what
one
they're-
more sentence to say, any,
Clarify.
Right.
yeah, just to clarify
If
that.
they do a 30-minute detention in the morning and they think they're earning
Time and a half.
overtime and a half, they're gonna get angry.
And
The
It's
more
just
we
that
can put in
communication
writing, the better.
Right.
that we're
Clearer it
Trying to
is,
get-
yes.
Okay.
So are you adding a number or adding a sentence?
I'm not sure yet. I'll add a sentence, probably.
They get paid straight time up to 40
Up to
hours a
40.
week. Or their normal hourly rate, however you want it. I'm saying straight time, hourly rate, maybe what they are familiar with.
Almost got a sentence here. If we said, any work performed during the week, because we're talking weekly here, that is less than 40 hours will be paid at the employee's normal rate of pay.
Yes,
Sounds good.
think so.
Yep, I think so. Those are clear, yeah, right. That'll do it.
And, just goes back to employee education.
So it's actually paid at the 41st hour, right, instead of 40th hour. So if you-
Right.
So it's 40, so if you work
Okay.
.25, you're gonna get
Okay, so
.38.
anything over, okay,
So-
gotcha.
So, yeah, so anything over, once it's a minute over, then
Or
it's
0.0.
time and a half.
There we go.
Actually, it's gonna go to quarter hours,
Yeah.
because it rounds.
Okay.
Oh, so
Oh,
it
very
goes to
good.
the quarter hour?
It goes, yeah, our time clock system, we use the IRS standard of the 7-minute rule. So if it's 0 to 7 minutes, it rounds down. If it's 8 to 15, it rounds up.
So if they work 40 hours and 7 minutes, there's no overtime. If they work 40 hours and 8 minutes, they get 15 minutes at that time.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
always 8,
Yeah, always is.
always 8.
7 and 8 are.
It's very
7 and 8.
consistent
Yes.
and it's good, very transparent.
And that might, I hate to say it, that might be, no, anyway, that's too much writing.
Any other issues we need to discuss with this policy?
I think that was good as long as we clarify
Okay.
that.
All right, so I will put that sentence in there, and we'll bring it back next time. Hopefully it would be, we look at it and
Good to go.
say we're good to go.
That's your policy committee.
No, it goes from policy to the board.
Yep, policy committee's the first read, and then, but if we're able to get that done, I don't know when your guys' next policy meeting.
22nd at 2 o'clock.
And I think our next meeting is this 21st, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, next Tuesday.
So if, assuming we pass that on through the 21st, they meet the 22nd, that could be the first read, the board meets the 27th then.
Next year.
Yep. All right, let's look at, I left in a real hurry and I didn't get GCBDA with me, but I've got GDBDA here the same. Okay, I'll let you look off. I wish I had the one that had all my scribbles on it.
Oh,
I have a lot of scribbles in mine.
Okay.
I'm gonna
Which one do you wanna look at? I mean, they're essentially the same.
Yeah, they're what we need to look at. Okay. If I recall correctly from yesterday, the issues were on G, I, K. Is that correct? Otherwise, we were pretty much good to go? Okay. I sure wish I had that paper with me. I had all kinds of stuff written on there. You guys were going to talk about, I thought, some language for,
Yes, and Todd, you didn't get to see this, but I ran it by Eric for personal business. I have, and I can email it to you, and us three, that was good. Conducting legal business and/or banking business that can't be conducted after school hours on a Saturday, dealing with personal household emergencies, including but not limited to flood, fire, weather damage, and parent guardian responsibilities, including but not limited to building conferences, school trips, and activities.
Wait a minute, school trips and activities, would that be like you
Like
mean
for your
field
child.
trips? That doesn't come under personal days?
Well, that was that.
Or you're trying to get it not to come under personal days? I see.
Because,
Okay.
so in other words, we haven't really eliminated anything from personal business.
well, we made it more restricting.
Not an awful lot in there.
Well, that was just what we discussed last night, so those were the things that had came up. That we felt needed a place.
I guess the part that I struggle with, Alyssa, is, you know, like I said, you know, somebody said yesterday, life happens. Yeah, it does. Everybody's got things that pop up occasionally. One of the reasons that the board wanted to allow the hour minimum and the 15-minute increments after that was to allow for more of those kinds of events. That, you know, right now, having to do either a half day or a whole day, even if you do 6 events, you've used up your three personal days at a minimum if you took half a day or less. You know, this way, if you have to do something that takes an hour or two, you could eke 6, 8, 10 things out of 2 days. So I think that's something that, you know, kind of makes up for the loss of the personal time. The other thing that I struggle with is if an event isn't important enough to an employee to take personal leave, how would we rationalize to a taxpayer that it was important enough for them to pay for?
Personally, I don't think taxpayers would want an educator to have to decide if their flooded basement or their child's field trip is more important to them. I don't think their issue is with us taking time for legitimate reasons, and that's why we're trying to spell it out more clearly what you could take it for, but just to say you have to decide, okay, you only have this amount of, you have 2 personal days, because you're also wanting to eliminate one of our personal days. So now you have to decide, do you deal with your household emergency or do you go on your child's field trip? How is that fair to us as employees?
Well, again, I understand that, Melissa, but I think you also have to look at it from the perspective of people in the private sector. They're not going to get, you know, they would be charged for those types of things.
Right, but they get to use their time however they see fit, usually, in the private
Depends on how
sector.
many days they have too, I suppose. You spent some time in the private sector. What was it like?
Oh, the 11 years I spent in the private sector, I had to use my vacation time for any time that I was gone. That we didn't, I mean, it wasn't
But you
known as
had
PTO days, they were called vacation time.
Right.
Yeah, and I had 2 weeks of vacation
And
time.
you could use
Every
that
And I
year.
could use it
wanted.
however. Which to include, I think that was even part of, we didn't have sick days in the business world. You just had 2 weeks where, here we have how many days? 14 days
For the 12-month employees.
for the 12-month employees?
There's 2 weeks, 10.
No, but
or
I mean, how
14.
many leave days do we have here?
For us, it's
teachers,
10.
Yeah, teachers,
certified,
is
12.
12.
12.
12
And then
leave
the
days, 2 personal.
2 personal days, so 12 days, 14 days
No.
altogether.
No.
No.
12.
Total.
10
12.
of you.
2 of those can be personal.
I guess mine more goes towards not, when I was in the private sector, but, you know, as an educator for all those years, we've always used that as personal leave. If I wanted to go on my kids' field trips, I had to use that as personal leave. If my basement flooded, I had to use that as personal leave. And so I don't know how to separate it out. And so my question would be, do we do I instead of K? Do we do I and you have personal leave instead of K having 2 personal days? Because that's what you use personal days for, personal business. I don't know how to separate it, yeah. Because you have all these reasons why you can use it, and then your personal K is whatever else might happen when life happens, you can take it out of, you're still gonna have a couple days to cover that. Life happens. But I wasn't in on the discussion last night, but that's just my take on it. Life happens is K.
What kind of language, Dr. Kraus? Because last night you indicated you were open to maybe some language to keep personal business around. What are you comfortable with? This is the language we came up with in 24 hours.
Yeah.
What are you comfortable with?
Well, it doesn't matter what I'm comfortable with, Melissa, it's whatever the board.
I understand, but we have to have, it has to be a two-way conversation.
Yeah.
Would eliminating the parent guardian responsibilities off that and leave it towards legal and a banking business and household emergencies? Would that, or putting a cap on that, up to 2 days?
Well, I certainly wouldn't want to leave it open. You know, and there are different ways to handle a flooded basement. One way is you shut off your water, you call a plumber, you wait till they get there, and then you come to work. Or the other one is you stay there
You
all
don't
day,
clean
or you
it
stay
up?
there all day. Well, I mean,
Or you clean it up afterward.
yeah, I had that exact thing happen to me a
So,
whole bunch of years ago. And I
just
shut the
had that
water
happen
off
2
and
weeks
got the
ago.
plumber and then went to work. But, you know, the whole idea of this, and the board's made this really clear from day one, is their desire is to have employees at work as much as they possibly can, because when you guys aren't there, learning suffers. And that's our business. We're teaching children. And I guess I fail to see if, you know, and I know this is a very unpopular concept, but I've brought it up a number of times, and negotiation means a give and take. And I think the board has given a whole bunch to the tune of $3 million. And I don't think it's unreasonable for them to ask for a little bit of that back in the form of some language concessions. That's what it comes down to for me. And not only in this policy, it's not even been all take from the board. They gave you 2 days back that you had to use or lose. For somebody that's been with the district long enough, that's $200 right there that you can bank and get back. You basically have been allowed to get a vacation every 5 years. If you stay here 25 years, there's 3 times in that duration where basically you can do a once-in-a-lifetime event 3 times. So it's not been, hey, give, give, give. There's also been a lot that the board's offering in exchange for that.
And also that, being gone to the 15 minutes allows you a whole lot more absences, times to be absence for things in that 2 days than taking a half a day or a whole day. I mean, that's another instance too, where we've been, you know, so that kind of stretched those leave days, because, you know, instead of taking off a day for a doctor's appointment or a day for 2 doctor's appointments, now you might be able to get 3 or 4 doctor's appointments in that amount of time that was a full day. I mean, I didn't want you to forget that benefit. I feel that's a benefit.
No, Melissa,
Okay.
you asked what, I would be comfortable putting in something about, you know, we're educators, our children are going to school, we should be at their conferences. I don't have any problem with
No.
adding in something that says, parent-teacher conferences, I think I would like to say,
Or
in our
meetings.
district, you know,
IEP meetings, I mean, I was appalled to think
Only
that we
in
didn't have
district, is that
parents.
what you're saying?
well, there again,
I mean, what if
If
they're at
they're
Helen
going-
Davis?
Yeah.
I don't know where Hunter Davis is.
It's
I'm
a
sorry.
It's within the
special,
district.
Right.
special education.
Okay.
Within our school district, it's just not at our district
Right.
schools.
Right, it's just like the private schools in the area, they're within our area.
Within the bounds of the district is a good way to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
think of
okay.
that. Is that what you were saying? Within the bounds
Or
of the
within
district?
St.
or
Joseph's
within
School
the
District.
Because, you know,
district?
there's possibility someone might have children or stepchildren that go to school in Olathe or South
Yeah.
Kansas City
Olathe,
somewhere.
Somewhere crazy.
You know, I don't know that
Right.
we
Yeah.
Yeah.
should be allowing that to be,
I was
think that
thinking
would,
it,
in my mind, that would be personal leave.
yes, I was taking it as you were saying, only if they went to a St. Joseph School District school,
No, I
is
mean-
what I,
The geographical
Okay.
bounds of
Okay.
the.
yeah.
In our-
I needed clarification.
It's gonna be hard to
Let's-
define.
or Ellie, what was the part of that that said that though about catastrophes? No, what'd you say about,
Household.
like?
Household emergencies, including but not limited to flood, fire, and weather damage.
Listed perils.
Because we, yeah,
Call that.
Basically,
Yeah,
because I'm,
Somebody's insurance policy and we don't.
Yeah.
listed perils and homeowners policy.
and to, I don't know, I wouldn't have a
Earthquake.
problem with putting that in there because that doesn't happen every year, doesn't, it's just one of
No,
those things that
yeah.
happens. Now, the rest of it, to me, that's personal day.
the
But
parent.
you have no control over flood, fire, or,
Well,
you know.
correct me if I'm wrong, but the idea is here is to catch the abuser.
Right.
When they simply say, oh man, had the basement flood again. Instead, they're going skiing. And because that's not a listed thing here, they know, and isn't that the idea of this here, is to basically catch the abusers and force them into a category. And we could do that still by including these perils and things if they were legitimate. And the people that abuse the system, that's what we need to start doing, is catching these people that are
Well,
abusing
and
the system.
administration's gonna have to start holding.
And you're gonna catch them more
They're
if
building.
you don't have that in there and they have to use a personal
Right,
day.
right.
Cause you know, I know, for 26 years, I protected my personal days.
Right.
And sometimes I knew ahead of time I was gonna use it for this or this unless something happened out of my control and I had to use them for something else. But, you know, those are protected. That's how you're gonna more catch it than
Right.
spelling out things like what we're trying to spell out here for.
If you said illness, injury, or incapacity of a member, a person that has a fire is going to be incapacitated. They're going to be mentally distraught. They're going to be mentally incapacitated because of the event that occurred.
So that already occurs under sick leave
Right,
definition?
incapacity of the employee. But I think if we listed fire or whatever, it may give you more in the sense that they came and said, look, I had a fire at my house and here's the issue, and it would give you something more to work with instead of saying, oh, I was so distraught I had a fire. Well, explain it to me. I mean,
So how am I gonna check that?
well, I mean, that's a insurance report, pretty much. If you're gonna, and as an administrator, as you know, I mean, you're basically, you have your problem employees, then you have your others that never have a problem. I've had one fire in 25 years, and I didn't even miss the day. I went to school that day. Now, if I'd had something that said if I had a fire, I probably would have stayed home that day, but instead, we shut her all up and said, oh, what are we gonna do? Call, you know, whatever the safe, whatever's the Safe Light or whatever the company is. I don't even know.
I think that's for glass.
Yeah, no, that's the glass, but we called the company up and said, come on out, and I met them at my lunch hour. But as it was very, I was just distraught, but I didn't miss the
You have
day.
a lunch hour? I
Oh,
was
no.
at lunch 20
10
minutes.
15
Oh,
minutes.
okay.
I have lunch to
We
do.
just call it lunch.
We
It's
call it
not
that.
We
to
call it
make
lunch.
ourselves feel better.
Professional.
Hurried snack time.
Yeah, snack time. It's a
Gave me a heart attack
granola
there
bar on the run.
She was gonna cut your lunch hours.
Yeah, I was getting ready to cut that.
So I'm thinking, you know, I mean, in a sense of, you could always claim incapacity. So if you list that as an item, then they're gonna come to their administrator and say, look, I had a fire. Well, that falls under board policy here. And then you would have documentation on it. If they're having fires every 6 months, then that sends off a ringer bell through your administrative chain of saying, we got a problem with an employee here. Can't have a fire every 6 months.
So are you saying include that or not
I
include
would
that?
say
Because the more
include
you
it.
talk, the more it sounds like we shouldn't include it.
I would say include it.
Include it?
I would. Just because they would tend to be more honest that way. You want honesty.
Yeah.
And the way you get terminated is being dishonest. You don't get terminated for being honest. You get terminated for being dishonest and coming in and saying, I was mentally incapacitated. Why? Well, I had a fire. Well, that falls in the category. Now, if they came into you and said, I had a fire, and then they didn't have a fire, that gives you more grounds as an administrator.
Do you think someone who's possibly predisposed to dishonesty is gonna care what the policy says?
No.
No, but you have to get, isn't this all based upon you managing the organization? I'm just trying to,
Well, part of it's based on trying to get a policy whereby someone doesn't have to monitor it 24/7.
I know,
There's 1,850 employees,
right,
and there are a lot of potential
sure.
for absences. Most legit, some not, but that's the point. You know, to get people to work as much as we possibly can, because that's what's best for kids.
Right. I mean, either way, the employees can use the incapacity clause to say I was mentally incapacitated by this event and fall within it. So, I'm just saying that if you want honesty, I think we would, the more honest we want people, the more we need to include. But
So do we need to spell out parent-teacher conferences in this? Or shouldn't that just be a given
Well,
that
it
if
was
you-
in.
It was in personal business.
Yeah, it was under personal
Right.
business, so if that's being completely taken away, there has to be.
Yeah,
has
because
to be
most
listed.
definitely we
Or
should be
IP meetings
encouraging
or
parent-teacher
whatever.
conferences.
Right.
So from, did you guys want to take some time, or?
so what's your,
I mean, where are we at on that then? Are we
We're
still
about- I think we're about where we started.
completely eliminating it?
Well, no, I mean, I think you guys are still having your opinion and we're still having ours. Explain to me from your point of view, with the changes that are proposed, what have the employees given up?
We gave up so much when this policy was put into place because what we negotiated wasn't written
I
in
can't
policy.
do anything about that.
I understand, but this policy was a whole lot of giving up when it was implemented.
Tell me from what's there to what is being proposed, what the teachers, or what the employees are losing.
it isn't so much, I mean, it's either glass half full or glass half empty. In the sense that we're trying to drive morale up in the district. In the sense of, if you constantly have to do this thing, give and take, we've given so much over the years, now it's time perhaps that the employees gain something more without having to constantly give things up. And that's the idea here, is that we're trying to raise morale. It isn't so much that, oh, it's a trade-off, morale stays the same. How about if we add and we increase morale that way, instead of saying, well, we gave, we took away. And we understand, times are tight, we know the board's has come through with the pay raises and things, but at the same time, it's been a long, dark winter for our employees.
But again, page 3, you don't have to lose it or use it or lose it. You're going
Right.
to gain 2 days.
Right, that's a plus.
Okay, that's a plus.
Right.
Then now, you don't have to take a half a day for an hour appointment, or a whole day because your principal says to you, I can't find a half day sub, so just take the whole day. I know, I've been there.
Right.
Okay, now you can take that hour and 15 minutes and come back and still use that a few times over. That's enough, is that in this policy
Well, one
too,
of our
correct?
discussions last night.
Okay, wait a minute,
Tammy,
I'm not
was-
finished.
okay, go
That's
ahead.
2. Now we've also spelled out all these, I thought it was an addition, all the different things you can use your emergency leave for. So when you're really not sick, you don't have to call in and say you're sick and feel bad about it, because you can put it under D for whatever, or E because you're being investigated, or F because you have a court appearance. I mean, before
Right,
we didn't have
right.
that. You had 2 personal days and 10 sick days.
Right.
And it turned you into liars when you had to go to court, but you were out of personal days, so you took a sick day, and so you called in sick so you could go to court. But see, now you don't have to do that. So we're building, that's kind of treating you more like professionals, I think. And that, so it's spelled out, and then we have the, for those longevity people who always get overlooked, I understand that. Every band of 5 years, they can take some of these PTO days and actually use it during the school year for a vacation.
Well, and those are incentives. I mean, that is a win-win situation.
It all
And
is a
you-
win-win,
and
I
you've
think.
stated to us, you've said, the most important tool in a classroom is a classroom teacher.
Right.
So
For
when you're saying-
everybody, not just the
Yeah,
classroom
when you're
teacher,
saying,
but our
what are you
support
getting
staff is
back?
just
You're
as
getting
important.
back motivated classroom teachers. I mean, that's the goal here. That's the ultimate goal.
That's the goal, but not at the expense of making it easier for them to be gone. If they're gone, they're not good teachers or paras or anything.
Right. I agree.
We want them in the classroom.
And
I
the
agree.
other thing was the bereavement leave pay changed, where you're not taking your days, we're giving you that free.
5 days.
5
Right.
days.
5 days that you don't have to take out of your time. I've never had that. I don't think anybody in this district has ever been able to take it. And so you get 5 days of bereavement leave for immediate family and then some. I mean, what would be, and we're not going to deduct those from you. So was that 5 or 6 things that have been a benefit in this policy that was new and different and better? See what I'm saying?
Oh, I understand. I
There's a lot of
understand.
good in this. This is not a bad policy. This is way better than the policy that I first saw when I started looking at this, and I've written a lot of policy over the years. This is good.
And then also on page 8, under holidays, we've spelled it out for them, like if a holiday lands on a certain day, we've got that all spelled out in there for you.
And the other thing we haven't talked about yet that we discussed last night, Todd, was
The funeral issue?
The funeral.
Yeah.
the funeral issue, and also when we were talking about the 5 days at the end, the blackout days. if you
Right.
wanna-
We can,
if you
let's
wanna call them that.
expand that out, and maybe we can come to a consensus then with everything together and put everything out, and then we can kind of go from there, if that's all right.
Okay.
Say that one more time.
Right.
Sorry, we were.
So you want to discuss yet the?
Well, let's put the whole thing
blackout
out, and
days?
then we'll,
Yeah.
everything, all the items out, and then maybe we can meet somewhere in the middle on this.
Well, we had discussed last night at United SJSD, and again, I've left my paper that I wrote all my notes on is somewhere else. But as I recall, the addition was going to be that, well, right now funeral says for immediate family. And we added, and members of your spouse's family. And then we had
It was- I have it
tentative
written.
agreement to say that it would be, that you could take funeral for other close friends, for whatever.
That would come out of
With
our
prayer.
personal bank with approval
Right.
and
Right.
And
documentation.
documentation.
And now, would that be a letter? Is that a letter?
Yes,
Yeah.
it would have to be a new letter.
That's what I was thinking.
It's supposed to be G2.
Yeah, G2.
Yeah,
H.
It really
And
doesn't
then
have
we're
to be
gonna
G2.
re-letter all the way down.
R2D2 or something.
And I think that's important
Because
because
I think they need to both be there, right there together, so that it's clear.
So do you have, Ellie, what,
Yeah.
Lori's got it written here if you can't find it.
Says, it was proposed move G. I didn't do the wording.
Okay, what do you?
All I wrote down was add funeral for others with prior approval plus documentation provided within a week.
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
5
and
days.
that's what I essentially had written on my, yeah.
And that was gonna be a new letter.
yeah, that's,
and that's important. And again, that goes back to you don't have to take a personal day.
well, the prior is important, because if they take the day, then they say, well, it's gonna cover, because you would hate for them to take the day and then not get approval, so the prior is important. So,
Right.
Because you don't have
Yeah,
Because you have a couple of days, once a,
right,
so I would say that's a plus,
that's a positive addition.
that's a plus.
okay.
I agree.
Then we go to what are informally called blackout days, that's on page 6.
double verification.
What I would like to propose, and I haven't even talked to the mini board people on
Get
this,
rid of those?
but I would like for it to
Get rid of
say,
Get rid of those.
I don't think it is in the best interest of kids to get rid of it completely, but I do think if we said something along the lines of any absences that fall under A, B, C, D, J, or not, K or L, don't require a
Double.
second signature.
Okay.
That would be anything that's health related, and anything that the employee was using personal leave for.
That's,
That would eliminate the need for a double
Is
signature.
that 7 or 8? I'm keeping count.
that's all right.
I think we're at
We need to.
Yeah, let's, can we meet? You bet.
So what are we gonna put those things in the next?
Telling Joe Fudge why we were talking.
No, but I should have.
I gave them all the inside.
I'm sure,
He
yeah.
said he told
Told
us
him
your,
to go away.
he told us your battle plan.
I thought it would be Rudy without you, so.
All right. Based on our discussion and consensus, you've said you're willing to add in the funeral that doesn't fall under bereavement, and you're willing to add in the parent-teacher conference IEP meeting
Somewhere.
somewhere?
In the geographical bounds of the district.
Yes,
Yes,
okay,
not in
yes.
Iowa, yeah.
So you can add, you're willing to add those. We would be willing to eliminate personal business completely if you would keep it at 3 days to use for personal leave out. So we would be willing to completely give up personal business if that would stay at 3 days and not be bumped down to 2.
Then it might cover those emergency situations as well, that aren't health related
And think that ends up
and field trips.
saving you days, because if it was a fire, it could be 4 days, it could be whatever. That actually, I mean, in my mind, it kind of takes back.
Okay, explain that to me, I'm not.
If I have
seeing
a
how that's
fire,
different.
then in my house, and I'm homeless, and I'm trying to figure out what to do, that may take a couple days. So,
But that would still be your PTO days.
But he's saying if we had added in, if we talked about keeping personal business for like household emergencies, you could take 4 days for that if we didn't get rid of personal business, plus you would still have your personal days sitting down there.
But couldn't they still take it if it was a disaster like that? And it's your PTO days and you have it?
We only have
we
2.
don't, we
No,
have two.
not
Oh,
if we don't-
personal days, yeah.
Yeah, but that's the only thing that would qualify
That-
under, according to this policy.
No, I kind of agreed with Todd. He spelled it out and helped define it for us when he said incapacitated.
You know,
Really, if you have a natural disaster like that happen, I would think I would consider myself incapacitated for a couple of days till I can redefine where
Well,
I'm
it
gonna live
depends
and
on
all
who's
that.
in
depends on
his
who
seat.
approves it.
And so Todd kind of helped us define that in that particular one in B. That would all fall under B.
We also talked about last night, developing APs for this. So there could be further,
But we're willing to
Clarification.
concede personal business if we keep personal days at 3. And just stick IEPs and conferences wherever that would
We
normally.
may need to just make one, because I think it's so important.
That is right. I mean, you,
It'd be a good policy for a school district to say, set an
Yeah.
example.
Yeah,
Just how
I could,
important
you
we
know,
think it
And then
is.
that
appalled
way they
as an
can-
educator that was never done and
Right.
practiced in this
you just say
district.
your personal day is field trip day, or
I would even
have
write it,
emergency.
I would even write it out that way, say, we find it so important in our district that, and, make a,
Okay, so if I understood you right, you're saying you'll give up personal days.
Personal.
Personal business. If we
Leave it at 3.
add back parent-teacher conferences, which used to be in personal business,
Somewhere.
and we're giving you funeral days that weren't in there before, and we give you 5 days for bereavement leave and 2 use it or lose it days that you didn't have to use, and put your vacation, or I mean your time off to the nearest 15 minutes. I'm not seeing that being real equitable.
And don't forget 5-year bans, they can take a vacation. And only one signature on A, B, C, D, K, and L.
Yeah, we already had 3 vacations. Bereavement wasn't. That was-
Funeral is in there. That's not something that
The
we're,
funeral was
No,
already.
Isn't
the-
being given
the-
to
the
us.
additional funeral.
additional funeral.
but it was in there this year. It had been proposed to take it out.
Funeral for immediate family.
No, there was still funeral beyond G
Wedding,
as of
graduation,
this
or
year
funeral.
said wedding, graduation, or funeral
Gotcha.
as of this year. So you could take it this year. So that wasn't being given to us. It was, you wanted to take it away. We're asking to keep it because
we wanted you to keep it with
well,
restriction, we
we weren't
restricted
taking
it.
it out here, we were just, had the bereavement on another page.
Yes, but
On page
under
7.
G, where it originally said
Then
wedding,
G,
graduation, or
it-
funeral, it didn't have
was
any of
for
the other
anybody.
language after that,
Right.
so that did include potential
Others.
very
Right.
close family friend or
Friends,
whatever
or-
the case
Right.
may have been.
Well, I just want to, I mean, on page 7, bereavement is really,
yes, but this is
Spelled
where
out.
G
That's
is where
very
it's coming
spelled
out of
out
our
for family.
personal bank.
Yeah.
It's not coming out of, it's not, they're not free days. This is, we're being willing to take days out of our own bank. And if we're willing to potentially give up $100 day to go to a funeral, it must be pretty important to us to go to that funeral.
Let's talk for a few minutes.
I don't know, they don't explain.
I always need selfies over
I don't know how to do a proper selfie.
Oh, I'll teach you later.
here. Okay. Having talked about it with the group, we're willing to keep the non-family funeral provision that we talked about. We're fine with the parent-teacher conferences and IEPs staying, that they would not count against leave. We're not willing to put anything back in there with personal business or to go to a third personal day. We feel like even without doing those things, the ledger is still way in your guys' favor. That's basically our final position on it.
And the blackout days.
Blackout days we would do as we talked about,
Can you list off those letters again, please?
A, B, C, D, K, L. And those will probably change
KL.
when we add the
L.
Yes, but the item will stay the same.
item would stay the same.
Okay, so the items, would you just make sure we're,
We could put the parent-teacher conference IEP in place of I, and then they don't have to change. 'Cause you know-
We still need to add G, R2, G2.
For funeral.
Oh, you can't just put it all under G?
They
Can't
want,
be- You have to have a G1 and a G2?
because they, I believe the
Well, that was-
immediate family, they wanted it to remain with the wedding if you're gonna
Yes.
be
And
done
graduation.
in graduation, where
So they were
funeral
striking funeral
is
from that.
different
So we have to add one just for funeral, gotcha.
for
Okay.
influential
But it,
people.
A, B, C, D would stay the same, and then it would be the items dealing with personal leave and the vacation opportunity, or whatever you want to call L now. Those would probably become L and M.
And we can use our personal day if we have them, and our principal says yes, it's okay for you to be gone that day on those blackout days or double verification
Yes,
days.
if your principal,
If principal supports that, they don't have to talk to you.
they don't have to talk to me, anything that has to do with health-related or personal leave.
And that will be clearly communicated
In an
to
AP,
the
correct?
principals.
As clearly as I'm able.
Now, I would hope that if you talk to your principal and they weren't
He
being
already said he
flexible or
would.
that, then you
Appeal it up.
peel it up. That's the chain of command, right, you know what I'm saying, like you said. So we're gonna communicate it as best we can to our principals, but if you have one who's about as flexible as a steel rod and doesn't see that, then you need to just communicate it up to Dr. Kraus, right?
And the
And if you don't
AP,
like what I say, it would go to Dr. Newhart and so on.
And we've had that this year.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
if we write that process clearly in an AP, well, that will also help, and that goes back to just communicating policies and the changes to staff clearly.
Yes.
yeah.
Get ahead of it instead of behind it, maybe.
Okay. So are we at a consensus point? Talk again if you wish. I know it's a decision.
Are we gonna revisit this again next week, or is
Or
this,
if you wanna be done with this.
Well, at some point in time, I want to be done.
can we hold off on just this one piece and then everything else is good for tonight?
Okay, what one piece are you referring to?
The one we're on right now, just the,
This policy. The other policy is comp time and all that we were finished
yeah,
with.
right.
Okay, well, I thought we were revisiting option,
No, I
On-
believe after further discussion, why you guys were absent that one.
you had an official discussion while we were gone?
We used your caucus time wisely.
Right. Yeah,
Well,
There were a
What they-
couple options,
yeah,
but
we were saying with the inclement weather, there were,
Oh, that, I'm talking about this policy.
no,
when
no,
else-
no, no.
no.
The inclement weather and the comp time policy, I think as long as it's written,
I don't know, I say that,
right?
because the,
There needs to be
Dr. Kraus
change.
wasn't
yeah, just the mention of the vocational.
Yeah,
he
with
wasn't
those
sure about that.
changes.
He wanted to look into
Yes,
that.
I
Right.
do.
Yes,
I
but
don't-
not
So
that,
before we,
not that we wanna present different
On
options.
the
Yes,
inclement
no,
weather
No, we're
policy.
good on,
Just one little part.
we're good on
issue-
this setup.
Okay.
We're
So-
good at not.
So the
we don't
other
need to-
option is off the table?
We're
at this
done
point?
with both, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. I don't have any problem with waiting. We can address this again on the 21st, because it should be, hopefully we can come to a consensus fairly quickly.
okay.
And then it can come to policy on the 22nd, and then we can take it to the board on the 27th.
Right. The issue they were talking about on the inclement weather was it mentions 12-month high school,
Vocational.
middle school, elementary, and vocational people. And there are, I think, a handful of teachers, 5 or 6.
There are
Alright,
12.
no,
that are-
you're-
Well, that's another issue, whether or not they're really 12 months or not. but I wanted to get some clarification on that. I want to find out exactly what their calendar looks like and how much vacation they get and those things before we,
We did not want them to have to report if their primary duty is teaching students who would not be there.
Right, and that's the issue, some of those classes
Yeah.
are split adult student classes.
So, but usually if they cancel all.
They cancel adult
So-
as well, at least
So there wouldn't be any
this year,
students.
they're
there.
having.
Yeah,
they're
and
having-
so they should not have
But
to
also,
report if there aren't any
they're
students.
under a different requirement to meet though a certain number of days
Right.
of
With those students, yes.
instruction
And I think we know.
to get their certification.
Right.
okay, so
I think
if I'm understanding correctly, we have a tentative agreement on the inclement weather, with revisiting, with,
So-
except for revisiting that vocational terminology.
And then the comp
On
time.
GDBB, we're good there.
Well, we're gonna add that additional line,
Yeah, I mean,
With
with
the
the addition
40,
of,
Up to
up
40.
to 40 is your.
any work performed during the week that is less than 40 hours will be paid at the employee's normal rate of pay.
I'll just clarify, if their contract is 35 or 37, they still get
Right.
paid normal up to.
To 40.
Well, and if-
There was a misconception.
and then on
We talked about that
GDBDA
last
and
night.
GCBDA, we will revisit next time.
Yes. I would like a little more time on that one, please.
I think on the leave policy, you really gotta decide what's more important to you. Is that third day of personal leave or some of these other things?
All right.
I mean, in
Right.
in the leave policy.
Right, right.
No,
Leave
yeah,
policy itself.
yeah.
Yep.
To me, this seems
We'll look
like a
into it
good
further.
stopping point. Do you guys have other things that you wanted to?
Cafeteria schedule on the salary arrangement. Like to have a discussion on that.
You're talking about health service? Not
Yeah,
health service,
nutrition.
Nutritional
nutritional
service. Nutritional service.
Is that on what particular,
Well, it was a change in the salary schedule on nutritional services.
We might just need clarification.
The document that was originally given to us at the St. Joe United the month before last, or before this month, was a different document, had different rates. And
as it
then,
went down through the schedule where that was,
Right.
where that was moved?
right, and then this, when we went to our salary negotiation last week, we were presented with a different schedule where it was, how was the term? Compressed?
Leveled,
Leveled.
flattened stuff.
Flattened.
And when you look at the salary schedule itself, the rates are reduced, even though the employee may see a raise this year. They'll see a step and they'll see a raise, their future and potential earnings will be cut. And that's just something that, you know, first of all, we don't necessarily like it that we were presented with one particular schedule and then it was changed and then presented to us as it was presented to St. Joe United.
Oh,
And then the second one is we don't really want to see our cafeteria workers. Clearly that division of our district's making money now.
Is that the only one, Wes, that we did that to?
No, we did it to all of them. All the hourly ones.
This is the one we saw the decline in. That's why we were concerned about it. As they go down through the scale, we're seeing a decline in the upper end of it.
All of them were. All of them showed decline.
And
Secretarial, the paras, all of them.
For the group here, you want to explain the reason why on that?
When we did the comparisons to the other districts, the bottom of the scales were $5 to, $8 above the next highest district. So that would eventually make all of our support staff the highest paid in the area, but yet our teachers are way behind yet. We could never bring our teachers up to the same level that the support staff would be at. And we didn't feel that was accurate.
I'm looking at to get this, make sure this information is correct.
Well, see, and we also had questions about this study. This compensation study wasn't performed by an outside vendor. It was done in-house, right?
That's correct. We took all the
Todd
salary
Ritzman?
schedules. I'm sorry, we took all the salary schedules.
Right, right. You know, and that's where, I mean, we don't know if this includes districts that are in, you know, in the same situation. We noticed when we went to OPA, we had a decline in salaries, and some of these may have outside vendors. Outside vendors tend to pay less in food service.
It did not include there was one that was on there when I went and looked at their website that was, they contracted, all the rest of them did not.
Yeah, we
It's
compared
the one that's the
with,
highest paid on there is the one that contracts.
we compared with Blue Springs, Independence, Lee Summit, Liberty, Park Hill, Platte County, Ray-Pec, Smithville, and Weston.
And all of their salary schedules are on their webpages. That's where we
Yeah.
took the information from.
We'd like to have some time to review that in the sense of, again, this was a shock in the sense that we're seeing a decline. And I thought our general rule was we weren't gonna do this. I mean,
But see, I think, now, maybe I'm misunderstanding this too. Wes, correct me if I'm wrong, but we flattened it so we would do that, because we did that across the board. We did it so it would be more equitable, because again, the percentage difference between support staff and teachers, but their support staff still, even on this new salary schedule, they're gonna make way more than they would have on their old salary schedule.
Yeah, nobody's gonna take a decrease.
Because they're already at the 50th percentile in 2 years instead of 3, or over. Some of them are over. And so you can show me the old, and show me that they're gonna make less money than?
They're
I
saying,
think you're looking at the ranges 3, 4, and 5, is that what
I'm
you're?
looking at
talking about?
ranges 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Your range 2, underneath this orange line, that's where they start to make less money. So yes, there was a lot added to that range 2, but range 1, after the first year, they're making less than the old salary schedule on range 2. So range 2 of this one, range 2 of the old salary schedule, this one is less.
so in
that's
In
range,
range 3,
Which salary, is that?
this is the new one. This is the one that was
So
given
the
to us at
first range,
negotiations.
the only thing in the first range.
Are 2 items, which are your nutrition services sub and a
Right.
lunchroom monitor,
Right.
yes. But then we go to range 2, and yes, it goes down to step 11. At step 11, they are on the new salary schedule making more money that year than they would in the old one. But then on step 12, they're
Or
making
16.
less money
Than the old one.
than
Right.
the old one.
So, for
Then on
example-
range 3, after the first one, after the first step, the second step, you are making less money per hour than the other one. And then on the 4th range, same thing.
That is correct.
5th range,
You are correct.
yes.
So what we'll do is we'll take everybody's salary where they are this year. We'll figure out what the increase is on the base here. We'll add that to their salary, place them on the schedule, move them to the next step, and then step them.
Because
So
we
even
built
though they're
this-
on step 11 this year, does not mean they're going to step 12 next year. So they're gonna get an equitable.
Okay, it's, you don't read it like a
raise.
teacher salary schedule, and we explained that to our people last year when we put them on, when they did this, and I went, what the heck, I've never seen a salary schedule like this before. So just because they're on step 2 in range 2 this year, doesn't mean they're gonna be on step 3 next year, because we bumped up the salary schedule. So what they'll do is they'll take this year's pay, find their place. Say I'm range 2, I'm gonna take this year's pay, I'm gonna find where I'm at on range 2, bump it up 1, because that's a step,
Oh,
and then bump it up again,
Right.
and so they're not gonna make less money, right?
Not quite.
Not quite? Okay.
Well, this is take 2, if we need take 3 as well. Correct me if I'm wrong, Wes. All right, so let's use a real number. You're
what
looking at,
about-
all right, so you're looking at the 16-17 schedule, right?
yeah, in the 17,
For nutrition
18,
services.
yes.
Okay, let me find this. So let's use 1123, step 4. A person that's at 1123, there was $1.07 added to the base. So that's gonna take them to 1230. Then we find the closest step on the new schedule, which would be the 1250, give them a step, they'd be at 1279. So that person would have made $1.46 raise, which is well over 10%.
On what, hold on,
Okay,
where are you talking
your
about? 'Cause
numbers
Your
are
numbers are
99.
different than, we're looking at
Our numbers don't match
the
our
actual salary
numbers.
schedules.
Well, this is the actual salary schedule.
Well,
No, that's the comp study.
That's our actual
but you
salary
have, well,
schedule.
but that's the average, right?
That's the new one.
No.
I
This
thought
is the
that's what
old
it said,
one.
not posted.
Okay. The numbers are still the same,
Well,
1123.
where are you seeing that?
I'm
then?
saying
Explain that.
in range 2, step 4, $11.23.
On
So
the
the
old
11
salary schedule, yes.
On the
So
old
then
salary
where are you
schedule.
going to on the new salary schedule?
So the increase from the base,
Was a
from the
dollar,
old to the new is $1.07.
$1.07,
Okay.
which makes 1230.
Okay,
And then you find the closest step on range 2 of the new schedule,
which would be.
To 12:30, correct?
There is
12:30.
Which would be
12:30.
12.44.
So nearest
So
nearest
now they've
one is
already gained 14
12.44,
cents.
and then you step them, they're at 12.69.
Yeah.
So that person's gone from 11.23 to 12.69.
For next year.
So let's pick another example in like
Okay.
range 3 on the same steps, range 4 or step 4. So range 3, step 4, 1822.
Okay?
On the new one, you're gonna put them at,
First, we're gonna add what was put on the base, which
Okay.
was 8 cents, which would be 18.30. And then you go to the nearest step is 18.50, and step them puts them at 18.75.
So they went
so
from
they
18,
actually went
18,
from step
22
2,
to
so they went from step 4 on the old salary schedule to step 7.
Yes. And you have to remember that people on ranges 3, 4, and 5 are already pretty much at the top
They're where
of
they
the
should
scale
be.
all around.
Well
They're
over
above
50%.
the 50th percentile.
I know, this salary schedule drove me crazy last year till I understood it, because we don't do teacher salaries like this. Your steps are your years. But if you look out at other districts and how they do certified staff, it is done just, I mean, I had to be
What's your
educated. Did I
question?
fight? I fought and fought about it. They're making more money.
There you go.
My question is, what's the cost here? I mean, so you're talking financial cost here of how much money is this going to save the district by cutting $1 here, 50 cents here over the size of our employees? And then second of all, what's it gonna do to morale costs of the district if they don't perceive this? I mean, I just don't see it where top ends are coming down. We're not talking about people making $100,000 a year. We're talking about people making between $24,000, $26,000 a year, and to them, that little bit that we get on the top does make a difference.
On the backside.
On the backside.
For longevity.
On the backside, I think the concern with the cafeteria staff is they're fine with elimination of range 1. Why can't we just leave this as is without the tweak? I think the tweak is what has them disturbed. It isn't anything else. They were fine with the salary schedule as it was.
Just give it the base.
Just give it a step at the base and go from there. I mean,
Because when
I'm
the
pretty sure
salary,
range 2 wanted that. They needed that dollar though. too.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't believe they wouldn't want $1.07
Right.
and then a step.
Because
Right.
that
But
actually
it's
gets them
only
to the
$1.07
50th percentile
Right.
in 2 years
dollar,
instead of 3.
that's
So
more
that's
than
a
but if you're
teacher-
losing it on the back end, what's your gain? If you're gaining $1.07 up front, you're also losing that money on the back end.
So instead of seeing that $1.70, you're
$1.07.
$1.07.
I mean, it'll save us money if we do it that way. They'll
Well,
make less.
I think
if
we
do it
really
that
need
way.
to look at this. I'll just be honest, I'd rather look at this again and come to a more of an agreement on it. We had one presentation, we thought that was what we had, and then we came back forward and we said,
There's certainly no problem with looking at it.
okay.
Okay.
The thing that I feel like is important is, right now, we're talking about one employee group.
Right.
Okay? As a district, we have to look at all employee groups.
Sure.
The goal is to try to get an equalized salary range for every group. We've got several groups that are way at the top. Nurses was one. We're paying them top dollar compared to other school nurses. Now, could they make lots more if they went private? Sure they could, but they choose to stay with the school. The other are the nutrition service managers. They were found to be at the top. So if we don't adjust the bottom, our paras, our secretaries, our nutrition services workers, we're all at the step 1, we're all very low, and at the bottom of our scale, we're all top. So it's a unequalized type of arrangement. That's all we're trying to do is make the base higher and compress the bottom a little bit. They're still going to be paid more than surrounding districts. Now, it
And
would be
more than
nice
they
if we had all of our teachers at 100 percentile too, yeah, but we're just trying to make it equitable for everybody. That's the
Try to be
biggest.
fair.
Well, I
And the thing is,
understand.
and I'm gonna go back to this because I'm the board member and I can say this. We're doing this and giving these raises and getting these people at a 50 percentile in 2 years instead of 3. So they're gonna gain money there. Deficit spending at $3 million.
Right.
We shouldn't be doing anything this year. I mean, how many times have I said in United SJSD, my stomach just gets into knots every time we add a penny because we don't have a revenue source and we are deficit spending at $3 million to take care of our people.
Right.
And doing it, but I understand if I say, let's look at it again, because I want you to understand that these people are really, it's pretty decent. And you know, when you're talking about a 10% raise or more, I don't know if anybody from that category is in the audience, but we don't have audience participation. But if I were sitting in the audience and you were arguing against a 10% raise that I was gonna get, I'd be leery.
Wes, I
Wes
think
had
you had
something
something.
too.
Another thing to keep in mind, food service is a operations thing.
Right.
Okay? If the prices for food service, the labor costs get too high, we cannot offset it with the revenues. Revenues are fixed. We cannot generate additional revenue. At the most, we can typically raise our rates for our students every year is about 10 to 15 cents is the max. The federal government sets the rate on the revenue for the free and reduced lunch. If our food service salaries get too high, we're going to lose too much money on our food service. We're going to take money out of the rest of the pot because we cannot generate additional revenue.
And you're right, Todd. I want to commend the food service because they are on target this year at a break even. Really, that's what you want to try to do with food service. Not that you're necessarily in it to make a profit out of it,
Right.
but you're in it to at least break even. And I commend them. They've done a marvelous job.
And year after year, it's expected in most districts that they run in the red, so they've done a phenomenal job.
Oh,
I've
they
never
really
known a food service in 27 years in education that wasn't in the red.
Well, see,
This
it's
is
important, you're
phenomenal.
talking, and we've had this discussion before in SJSU United, that you have a group of people here that have been kicked around pretty good, and they want to have clarification on what's happening here.
So do you
That's
think?
why we added.
We can
the
look at
dollar
it again, yeah. We need, I mean,
Well, I know,
raise to
but-
get them there faster. Instead of taking 3 years, we did it in 2.
But when you lose on the back end, it really doesn't help. I mean, it's got to go consistently through. I don't think the public's going to object to our food service people being some of the top paid. If I have somebody handling my kids' food, then, and all revenue sources are fixed in the school district.
No,
all
they're not.
fixed.
No, they're not.
Well-
Food service is a completely different one.
It-
It's got its
just
own
a different-
program.
It's a different animal.
Right.
Well, and I
it
also
is.
think we would ask you to put yourself, if you were in their shoes, nutrition services, and you saw document number 1, and then document number 2 comes out, it creates panic. It really does, because, oh, well, I could have been in range 5 at the bottom was $30.69, and now it's $28. That money adds up. So yeah, you could see where when you're thinking long term down the
Well,
line.
if I remember right, we talked about this last year to some degree from the standpoint where we're on the backside of the schedule, they are above, okay? It was on the front side, the starting wage. So you've corrected the starting wage, you've leveled out the bottom end, which doesn't necessarily, I mean, they're right there still close to being top, but it's now a little bit below.
I think it would go a long way for you to get in front of those groups of people and explain this to them, what this means, because we can try and we are trying, but for you to field those questions of this is why we're doing this, so it doesn't just look like to them we're going backwards. That's been said to me more than one time. It's going backwards, it's going the wrong way. Explain that, explain what's happening.
And the process of where,
Yes.
how they'll be placed and why
Not
it's
just
done and that
when they
it's
look
been
at it.
done to other groups, including educators.
That's what we did last year with those meetings, and we had to re-educate certified staff, not certified, I'm sorry, classified staff, because everybody thought, they were coming in at the same level and their steps equated to the years of service, and it doesn't. So we did that last year. So I think this year, if we said to them again, now remember, and if he says to them, take this year's wage, find yourself, what you were saying, that what you explained, $1.07, one step down, and now you're $1.
Or maybe writing out some clear cut
$1.07 near step, one step down, they're gonna see that.
visual.
And I think they would really appreciate that face-to-face time with you as well.
Well, there's representation there on St. Joe United.
Yes, but outside of that, yes, that one person is representing a huge group, and she does a phenomenal job. She does a great job representing them. But for you to get in front of all of these people that are sitting here and the many people they represent, then they can ask their questions directly to you, and there's no messages getting lost in the shuffle. Eric gave a perfect example.
direct.
It's like the telephone game. Like, we try to pass the information, you try to pass it down through the
Well,
administrators.
This is the
It just
document
gets
that
lost
was, this is the document that was shared, and I just want to read you the note on the bottom. It says, The proposal is a significant raise to range to $1. This would put all employees in this category above the 50th percentile. This proposal is only valid through United SJSD. If this employee group votes to unionize, we'll be starting over.
Yeah, you will, because it's a whole nother negotiation.
It is,
Falls-
but,
Falls under a different agreement.
and I
Totally
totally
different
agree, but is that some type of a veiled threat? If you do that, then boy, you're gonna lose your 50th percentile.
That's a statement.
God.
It's just the truth.
I'm just saying that, in the, see, you're all saying this, but,
You know, if I hadn't put that on there, you'd have been the first one to say,
Yeah.
you're hiding stuff.
no?
Yes, you would have, I know you.
No, the truth is the truth. Stop trying to make it
No,
a threat.
it's
because
not.
We are
It's-
trying to be, and the two of us are the most friendly employee board members there are. We are trying to make it right. And all of this work that we have done, that you will never know that we've done, we could take this to the board, to the rest of the board, and they may say no to all of it.
No,
We are
no,
trying
knowing
to
that
do
they
the right.
filed was the reason that was put
Right.
down
Yeah.
there.
'cause
And
we
that
had
goes,
to-
it goes without saying. I mean, it doesn't
But
even have to be
people
said.
It doesn't.
No, it
without
doesn't
saying
when
that.
people
It
don't
doesn't.
understand negotiations. No, I'm
It
sorry.
doesn't go without
That's a
saying.
whole different legal game. I mean,
sorry.
I'm just
Like
saying.
And we,
Well,
This isn't a game.
In all likelihood, that's not gonna happen this year anyway
Right.
for this salary schedule.
Honest.
But then you take
discussion.
this document and then you hand out the next document, which is totally different. And you say, that's where it came in. Now, you gotta understand my thinking here. You have this document, you have this written on here. You get document number 2, it's different. It's presented to us here and we're not aware of this and it's different.
But we
I
talked
get it.
about it.
I get it.
We're trying to build transparency, we're trying to get things out, and you're saying, oh gosh, Brockett, you're being awful, I'm just trying to make this out in a clear.
That came at a later time when Wes
Right.
and Brian and we were all trying to put this together and looking at the dollar amounts. And that wasn't designed necessarily to, but it came at a later time in the process, which shouldn't have.
Right, and I tried to do a board search on the document, because I thought this was done, then it turned out to be an inside, and that's fine. I just need to know where the documentation come for these studies. I mean, who did the study? Because it wasn't included in our RFP. It wasn't done by an outside vendor, and I'm sure Wes did a great job, but it would have been good to know where that information came from.
Well, currently we are using the CBIZ study along with the Todd Metz
Right.
compilation compilation that they put together there last spring.
But the outrage, I mean, when you show outrage at me, Sam, I'm just trying to represent what the public, what the perception is to your average person sitting out here saying, oh my gosh, looky here.
yeah, I beg to differ, though, that anybody took that as a threat. That was
Oh,
my
I've
Todd
heard
Brockett
otherwise.
threat.
Oh, no, it's
And
not.
really, it isn't $1, now it's $1.07.
Well,
But,
I'm telling you,
I
Tammy,
don't
I heard it
disagree that we
firsthand.
should get out in front of the employee group and have it explained, most definitely. But I would want that
What
employee
do
group
they
to
take as a
understand that
threat?
the second salary schedule is far better
I know.
for them.
I think we need to.
I think we need to stop with the threats. We're trying to be truthful and honest and as open as we possibly can.
I think the big concern was when the term flattened was used. And we know what flattened means, but there
Right.
was never an amount put to flattened by, each step will be. We did have range, but we didn't have the other ranges, so we did not know how it would be flattened. We couldn't communicate in front of that. It was put in front, so we just need more time with it, we need some education with it. When we do use the term flatten west in the future, maybe we could have a change amount or whatever that flattening amount would be, or what that means.
We'll
and
take a
maybe-
relook at it, bring it back on the 21st
And the rationale behind it.
and potentially, I mean, it's
all
not,
communication.
nothing's yet been finalized. That's why you go through this process for the double checks too.
So what you're saying, I just want to clarify this, so if you add $1.07 to this, that would extend it outside the range. See, and that makes a difference
Would extend.
with the old salary schedule. See, that makes sense now that you say that, but we didn't have that information going in. All you were asking us to do was to, well, you,
They saw it
just
for the
had
first,
range
they saw it for the
Right,
first
this one
time.
here.
a week.
Right,
We
the
saw
full
it at
schedule, yeah, we
negotiations
did not
for the
have that.
first time.
it was all unclear,
always
so,
had range too.
again, when you have things that are unclear, you have issues arise. And again, just messengers, it's not Todd Brockett saying it, Tammy, it's, people are coming to me and saying, look at this.
But I think, Todd, that is our job, because I mean, I've had that conversation with people of if you do unionize, we're not allowed to to negotiate on your
That's
behalf.
right.
So I think it's how you approach it. Don't approach it as it's a threat. Say, this is just a fact. When we have to do I get what you're saying, because we get the same concerns. It's how we respond to it and approach it.
Sure.
We have to do
And
that.
so
You're-
you're saying
you're-
people felt threatened by that? That's what you're telling me?
Well, I mean,
They came to you and said they're threatening us?
I think it would say, well, Tammy, you're a brunette. Well, that's clear, that's obvious, right? You know,
Well, not really,
clearly,
but yeah.
clearly, yeah, I mean, either that.
Not really, but.
Nobody needs to
Clearly,
know that.
if you unionize, it's all off the table. That goes without saying.
It doesn't.
But it doesn't in
Oh,
the
it does.
district, no.
No.
To you it does because you're
doesn't.
familiar with that,
Because
just
you
like
live
me,
there.
I was trained in negotiations, informal negotiations. But in this district, there's never been formal negotiations, it's all been informal. This is the first year we have a formal negotiating group. So
Right.
people are watching that. So people that don't know anything about negotiating are asking those questions,
Well-
but they don't know that. So
And
we
here's-
write that
there-
down there so they
There's
know.
no threat by it.
Yeah.
If the food service want to go that route, no different than the maintenance. I mean,
Sure.
that's fine.
It's a choice.
You know, we're working with the maintenance on that side, no different what we're working with you guys right now. I think the question ultimately is gonna be though, what is the best use of resources and time in negotiation? Is it working through this process as one group and one whole? I mean, you guys are doing a great job with that versus where we got also, if that happens, we got two more other groups we gotta single out and go negotiate separately
Well,
then.
but it also clearly shows that we're not capable of negotiating for them. We don't know their needs. We don't know what they need. We have no idea what their salaries
you
are.
do.
See, and that's what goes back
do
to
and we
putting
don't.
remember I think it came up in discussion somewhere about putting a certified
You're
or
doing a great job right now.
classified
Well,
staff
we're
on the
trying.
negotiating team. And
I
maybe
mean-
that United SJSD becomes the negotiating team, because everybody is, I mean, you just don't know, remember, it's evolving.
It's a conference
It's
team.
evolving.
It's not it's a conference.
Yeah.
And
It's
there's a
evolving.
difference. You know, I just want to reiterate that when you use word, you're going to be a significant raise to $2, that's where the issue came in, where some people were saying, well, boy, if we vote to do this, that's all going to be off the table, we're going to lose it. So I'm just
Well,
saying, that's
no,
where it
really,
came
they are
from.
gonna lose it, because they're gonna start at ground zero.
Help
I
me
know.
remember.
They are gonna lose it, Todd, don't tell them that's something that's
I'm
not
they're
true.
telling me, Tammy, I'm just telling you, don't go after the
Well,
messenger.
currently, right now, it's all a matter of timing though, too.
It is,
If thi-
absolutely.
If this gets
Sure.
in place, I mean, the way this process with, even with the maintenance group, you know, that didn't end up until what, June of last year?
Sure.
So,
Right.
my bet is that this is gonna happen first. If they do unionize, then that would be in place for negotiations for 18-19.
Right, correct, you're right,
So,
So they're still gonna live off this for next year.
sure.
And my recollection, Todd, and the rest of you were there too, was that was very clearly gone over, as was the writing on all the rest of the sheets that were handed out in that packet, in terms of this is for United SJSD only. We've talked about the operations staff a number of times, that we weren't considering their group because they had their
Oh,
own
right,
independent bargaining
right, I
unit.
understand, yeah, sure,
Yeah.
sure.
So that was a clarification that I thought needed to be made to the employees in that group, that right now you're part of United SJSD.
Right.
This is United SJSD work.
Right, again, perceptions are everything,
Okay.
and that's,
What perception did you come away from that meeting with?
the perceptions
That it
of
was
the
a
people
threat?
that approached me that I represent
Yes.
were that they felt that it was a veiled threat.
And since you were at the SJSD meeting, you should have been able to say to them, no, this is simply meaning that this is a,
It's just a stated fact, and I know that because of negotiations.
But did you say
because-
that?
Did you say that
You
to
know
us?
that, but did you say that? It's just a stated fact, it's not a threat. I know it's not, because I was at the United
Right.
SJS meeting, and I was told it wasn't a threat.
But this whole meeting's about, we've had numerous miscommunications, whether it's snow day policy, whether any of the other policies. It's very important going forward that we clearly communicate, what's going on. And this was, in my opinion, was not communicated clearly because it could have been perceived two different ways.
You mean the whole schedule?
well,
No,
Or you
just,
mean this
for instance, a
statement?
note in the
Well,
corner.
what we're asking for though, too, guys, because you are at the table, the people are at the St. Joe United, that we also get
clarify.
your help in helping communicate it.
And we try, we do.
Okay.
And we clarified that
That's
last
why I
night.
asked, is that what you
Right.
said, or did you let them believe that it's a threat?
No, I had to educate them on when you start over, you renegotiate. And that's the way it's supposed to be. That's just,
That's right.
that's education. That's what I always.
I mean, no big deal here. I mean, I know it is a big deal, but what I'm saying is, yeah, we need to bring it back, obviously, and revisit it. Okay, and we're willing to do that.
Okay, that's fine, we appreciate it.
I think education and communication. And maybe
I would be
having
glad
that
to.
document, the entire documents in the entirety before we negotiate.
That-
We had range two, we
that'd
just
be
didn't have the
on
other
the
ranges.
21st.
Yep.
Okay. We good?
I think we are.
I would be glad to meet with, we'll set up some meetings similar to what we did last year with any of the
I
employee
think
groups.
with them and support staff as well, I mean, just, because they're such
And
large.
support staff in general, you mean, or?
The bottom's flattened on support staff as well,
Yeah.
but nobody was in that range.
Yeah.
And just education on why those were flattened.
Because I think we benefited from those meetings last year. People came out understanding where they were, so I think that's a good
And
thing.
then you can speak to the going backwards, and you can speak to it way better than we can. We try, we really do.
We're going forward.
That's
I
right.
understand, but to
We are
them it
moving
appears that they're
forward.
going backwards.
Well, and that
So,
needs to be the
understanding that and
consistent
then-
message
yeah,
Well,
from everyone.
And we've said this numerous times, the average employee is not gonna say this, they're not gonna say what we say. And so if you take the things that we say personally and say, well, Brockett, you know, I'm just expressing, that's what I've been doing for 10 years
You're the
now.
voice.
I'm just expressing, I'm unafraid, I don't care.
It's
I'm
just
just concerned with what you're expressing.
after the
Is
concern.
is it what we said in United SJSD, so that deflates the?
Actually, it wasn't what
the,
you
um,
said, it's for
the-
my own
you know, the-
education about the understanding of negotiations.
Okay.
I understand how it is, that's how I built my credibility. I say what I mean what I say, and I don't, that's just the way it works.
It should have, the timing and how it came
Yes.
down
That's everything.
was, I mean, I was concerned about the issue, but when it was presented, last week, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So,
I guess really, and I won't make Lori take the blame for that, because when we meet with Wes and Dr. Kraus to try to do the best we can and bring it forward, I remember saying, well, no, bring them the new one, because it's so much better. So you know what, I take the blame for that
Well-
extra salary schedule, and not taking it first to, you know what I mean? Because I'm just like, why wouldn't we take them the better salary schedule?
And had
So
an
I take-
explanation came with that, or had it gone to United SGSC, maybe that's
Yeah,
what-
maybe so. But my thought was, so, blame me, because I'm like, heavens, take the better one, because they're gonna want the better one,
next meeting
so.
is Tuesday?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
At 4:30 or 4:15, because it did say 4:30 on
It did.
our calendar.
I don't
Over
care,
here.
just so we all know.
Yes.
Or we want to do 4:15.
Well, hold on, let me look and see
I-
what it
We
I've
have
got-
it right
said.
now at 4:15.
I've got two calendar notices. one
Yes,
says
but it says 4:15 for next Tuesday, so today was the only day it said 4:30.
Because I think of it as we switched days.
Right.
And we didn't have the room until 4:30, and
Oh, okay, maybe that's.
All right, 4:15 it is, next Tuesday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.